So, my friend Darnock linked me to this video of him, the Barking Atheist, Shayra, and a bunch of other people, a bunch of other atheists, kind of doing a 2 girls 1 cup reaction kind of thing to this video by a stupid creationist. You know, just a reply. Sorry, that was him, Darnock, right now, telling me to make it, this vid, so, yeah. So, I watched it. I thought I recorded it. I did all the reactions, you know, over 9,000 facepalms, pretty much. And then I flipped my iPod over to see if it was recording. It wasn't. I had wasted 10 minutes of my life. God, I really don't want to do this again, but Darnock told me to, and he's one of the few people I listen to. So, with that, wish me luck. Sorry if the audio's a little loud. Here, this long intro.
Hey folks, back once more with another installment of stupid atheist objections, arguments, or statements. And this time I was talking to an atheist about the fact that he's one day going to have to give an account before God after he dies, to which he responded, well, which God? Odin, Thor, and a few others that he listed. But this was not an authentic question that he gave, because he already knew well that I was a Christian, and he himself doesn't believe in any of these claimed deities. This was not even an argument against God, and he was presenting it as such, but it was rather more of a statement to get me bouncing all around, bench pressing a burden that I am not even dealing with. I mean, I'm well aware of the fact that there are many false gods. The Bible talks about many of them, and we see many of them spoken of in modern times that weren't mentioned in the Bible. But, even the atheist himself has a false god himself, or any sort of other things that he elevates in life. Once you do define certain things like worship in a person's life, what do they focus and pour all their emotional energy, time, other resources into, you find that is what they elevate, worship, adore, and praise. And therefore that is essentially their god. And people are very egocentric, people are very prideful and focused on self. So that's what it boils down to for them. But this statement that he gave me, back to that, it's really just a dismissal. His little cheap dismissal of God is if to say, it's so cluttered and confused, this discussion about God. There's so many of the pantheon out there that I'm not even going to deal with any one specific deity. It's really just a cloaked excuse to write off all of it as just a bunch of malarkey. Now, I know not all atheists approach it that way when they issue that question. Some atheists have, when they say, what about these other deities, they do want to get down to the brass tacks and deal with specifics, hash things out. But I've heard this several times. This is not the first. This is like the 4th or 5th time I've heard people use this statement as a supposed rebuttal, as a supposed argument to get the theist to shut his mouth. And that's not, it's not even an argument. It's, like I said, it's just a dismissal. I mean, simply because many people out there have claimed a variety of different deities, that says nothing at all whatsoever about the topic of God existing. I mean, I've also heard some atheists, and this is kind of tied in with it, they'll quote this guy named Stephen, I forgot his name, let me pull him up so I can quote him accurately. Stephen Henry Roberts, who said, right here, I contend that we are both atheists. Talking to the theist. I just believe in one fewer God than you do. When you understand why you dismiss all the other possible gods, you will understand why I dismiss yours. Okay, and so that quote of his is basically just displaying laziness in research replaced by hot air rhetoric. I mean, all God figures are not even close to the same. There are finite gods, there are infinite gods, there are personal, impersonal, etc., etc., etc. I mean, some people have man as God, some as an inanimate object, and the list just continues and continues. Some ideas of God are contradictory and irrational. Some are rational. And only one, actually, the one true and living God, who is there and is not silent, is required for rationality to even be possible. And that's the one I contend for. And so we have to deal with each one. Granted, there are thousands of different deities out there, but when you boil it down and you place them into the different lump categories, you're only dealing with like a dozen or so categories that have to be dealt with. And if you're not willing to examine those different claims, then you're just lazy and you want a cheap little zinger to try and smoke screen the theist. Unfortunately, a lot of times it works. But beware of that, okay? Another one is one that was actually used by Dan Barker in a debate that I saw recently, where he said that people were not advanced back in the day, and they had no knowledge about lightning and other certain scientific findings or knowledge, that they were primitive, and came up with the concept of God to fill in the gaps of their knowledge. You know, because they saw lightning and they thought, oh, there's a lightning god, he's up there. But then once they got up high enough in the clouds or something like that, at the tip top of the mountain, they found out that there was no god up there, you know, and then maybe more in modern day, the space shuttle, oh, maybe he's now in space. Then we got up there and, oh, there's no god. You know, that was the whole idea that he was saying. But, you know, this is just an alternate explanation. And I'm sorry, but alternate explanations are not refutations of a different view, and they're not even vindications for your view. So do keep that in mind. I don't even know if that's even true, that people thought that, but that's an aside. But the assumption that our first parents were dumb, you know, taking it back to, quote, primitive man, I'd say that this assumption is in fact dumb. They were much smarter than us. We forget that our scientific advances are just a collection of data built upon data, and it exponentially increases over time. So this is expected that we have many advances here in the last couple hundred years. But the followers of God from the beginning, even before Judaism, carried through oral tradition their knowledge about God from God, and they would have just chuckled it up. They would have laughed at these idiot pagans, and they probably did, who are not only darkened spiritually, but intellectually as well, being separated as goats from the people of God, okay? I mean, they would have thought, man, these pagan outsiders are morons. They're stupid idiots. I mean, to think that God is in the clouds, or, the Bible even mentions, or makes fun of these sorts of people who will do similar things by carving out of wood with their own hands gods to worship. The fact remains that we are in no short supply of morons throughout history. Today, there's so many morons. And so, thinking way back, the Bronze Age back in the day, yeah, I'm sure they had their fair share of idiots then too, and we have documentation of much of this, and this would be one example where they were making gods out of wood and then bowing down before them. Elijah made fun of some of the false gods
Rambling?
as well. So, I'm not surprised if it is true that people thought God lived in the clouds. Whoop-de-doo. There's probably some people today that think that. But had people been reading their Bibles, they wouldn't have come up with such stupid ideas about God. And like I said, the Jews and the people of God before the Jews would have mocked just as much as I mock idiots who would say God lives in the clouds or any other similar notion. Anyway, that's 2 more for you. Have a good night.
Okay. 8 minutes has never felt more like forever. Could you tell that I was getting bored at the 4-minute mark? Oy vey. I've heard all these before, so this isn't as shocking as everyone says it would. It would be just, if you can count how many face palms I did during the video, I will love you forever and ever. Because this whole video is just... Never again. No more stupid tags ever again.